Making Moves in the Marketplace is a program dedicated to providing a forum for elite social entrepreneurs doing significant acts of good for our world by impacting their own sphere of influence. These unique individuals are following their calling and encouraging success, and not just for themselves. Listen to these interviews and be inspired, as well as obtain contact information so you can get firsthand advice. So let's meet our guests on Making Moves in the Marketplace.
This is Ed Bracey on behalf of Making Moves in the Marketplace. My special guest today is Regina Huber. Regina, first of all, let me start by saying hello, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Ed. I'm doing fabulous. How about yourself? Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, super. Now, Regina represents Transform Your Performance, and she is a transformational coach. Would you explain to us what that means?
Sure. So I have developed a system that I call the Powerful Leadership Transformation. And I work both with individuals and corporations as clients. And this system, what it consists of is basically 4 elements. So the 3 first ones are the basis for the 4th. The first one is an empowering mindset. Okay. You could also say a self-empowering mindset. Mm-hmm. The second is distinctive uniqueness. And the third is a body-conscious presence. So when we talk about presence here, it's business presence, of course. Mm-hmm. And then when we have these 3, I believe that we can take effective action.
Okay. Why don't you back up just a little bit and explain the significance of each one?
Yes, sure. So I was not always really conscious about my decisions in the past. So you could say I grabbed all my opportunities as they came my way, or at least most of them. But I wasn't always aware of other maybe opportunities that were around me. And so I just did because I did. I thought it could be good. Right. But then later on, I had a very painful and also very mind-opening experience in a way.
What was that?
Yeah, so I had an experience with a business partner that didn't quite work out as I had planned. And the impact was really big on my business at the time, which I had to close down as a consequence of that. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, in hindsight, we always are more, we always know more, right? We always do our best and all that. But it also was a blessing in disguise because it opened me up to very deep mindset work. So I studied our mind and specifically our subconscious mind in depth. And that's what brought me much greater awareness. And this is what I also now can pass on to my clients because, as you probably know, 95% or even more of our behavior is driven by our subconscious programming. Only a little bit is our conscious mind, or a little bit of it is driven by our conscious awareness. Now, awareness is everything, really. What I think it is about is to become the observer of our thoughts and to turn them around when they do not serve us. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely a first step, but we also can go much deeper with this work. And that's what I do in my private coaching sessions.
I see. So with the 3 elements that you mentioned, the first one you mentioned was the empowering mindset.
Yes.
Give us a definition, a practical definition that we would understand. It sounds so technical to me.
Okay, sure. So oftentimes we think, I cannot do this, or other people are more successful than me. So we compare ourselves, and most of the time we compare ourselves down. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's beneficial to compare ourselves. And this is where actually the next item also comes in when we talk about distinctive uniqueness. So comparison really only helps us when we want to get to our next level. So I have learned to compare myself to myself and to my current level in terms of growing out of where I am right now instead of comparing myself to others who are different anyway. Because nobody is in exactly the same situation, and it's exactly how it's supposed to be, right? And all of us do make our progress in the exact right timing as we're supposed to be. Of course, we can drive it through effective action, which is, as I said before, more a result of our mindset, our finding our brilliance and of developing the presence in business that helps us also get visibility in front of the right people.
Okay. So explain to me the difference of the empowering mindset as opposed to, say, for instance, having a good self-image.
Okay. So the empowering mindset really comes from within. It plays into a positive self-image for sure. Okay. The positive self-image is a result of an empowering mindset and other elements. So a positive self-image is, and this is when the other elements come into play. When we know that we can achieve what we want to achieve, so that's a result of an empowering mindset. Mm-hmm. And I can attitude. It's a positive self-image is also a result of knowing our own brilliance, being aware of our own greatness, mm-hmm. and knowing that it doesn't have to be the same as other people's greatness, knowing that we can be different and it's actually exactly again as it's meant to be. So this is what I call our distinctive uniqueness. Finding our distinctive uniqueness and using it takes away that need for comparison. Mm-hmm. Because when we are comfortable with who we are and when we see that brilliance in ourselves, there's really no need to feel threatened by others who are different or more successful.
Great. So the next element that you mentioned after the empowering mindset was?
A body-conscious presence.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Sure. So a body-conscious presence is, we oftentimes forget that our body is a part of who we are. Mm-hmm. It's an integral part. Oftentimes we think, oh, our body is one thing and our mind is another thing, and that's not really true. We are an entity as a human being, right? And as a soul being as well. So it all comes together in that one person while we are on this planet Earth. Mm-hmm. So we should be aware of that. Also, our body conscious presence includes our energy, because again, our energy is not something separate from our body. It's, as you well know, all there is energy, right? Sure. Everything is energy. So we know that nowadays. So we must be aware of the energy we are carrying into a meeting, into a conversation, into even a phone call, because our energy also is transmitted through the phone lines. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what I say is, you may also have heard that, and the audience might have heard that 55% of how others perceive us is through our body language. Mm-hmm. But I really want to go deeper with that, because it's not only about the gestures, the posture, the movement, and how others see you visually, but it's also about the energy you're carrying. And oftentimes we say, oh, this person has a lot of charisma. That's also a result of that energy, not only, but also. So if you allow me to give you an example.
Please do.
I told you before our interview that I have a big passion for dance, right? Mm-hmm. So I also do partner dance. And in partner dance, I'm known as an excellent follower.
Okay.
And that's because I pick up the little cues and signs from my dance partner's body really easily. And part of it is practice, but another part is really that part about the energy. And I know immediately whether a dance partner can lead me through a pleasant dance experience or not, just by that. Mm-hmm. It's not only about the rhythm and the steps, right? It's about that energy. That's when, if a dance partner is a leader in dance, if his energy is off and he's not centered in his energy, mm-hmm. it's not fun to dance with that person. Doesn't feel safe. And the same happens in business when we go into a meeting and we are not centered in our energy and our energy feels off. Our meeting partner or our prospect picks up on that before we even say a single word. Wow. It takes 0.07 seconds for our brain to determine whether it's safe to trust somebody. And this is our survival mechanism, basically. Mm-hmm. We do it automatically without even noticing. It's like a blink of an eye, right?
Right.
And that's why it's so important to prepare energetically for our meetings, for our sales conversations, for any encounters with other human beings, basically, I would say.
I see. That is a great correlation that you gave us an example there of dance partners. That is so true. I've had many experiences and dealt with several people that the harmony just wasn't there in the business, and eventually the life just flowed right out of that relationship. Outstanding. So we have the first two elements. What is the third that you mentioned?
We talked about self-empowering mindset. We talked about distinctive uniqueness, and we talked about body conscious presence, but we only touched on the distinctive uniqueness. You are right. So I want to go back to that a little bit, because, I believe that, we often talk about diversity in a context of it being an issue. Mm-hmm. Diversity is a tremendously rich gift, and it's there for a reason, right? We are all different for a reason. It's because if you just think about it, that there are currently 7.4 or 7.5 billion people on this planet.
Yes.
And no one has the same DNA as you or me.
That is
no one. Right? No one has the same iris even. And we now know, I've read on the internet that not even identical twins have exactly the same DNA. It's just amazing. Mm-hmm. And I think this is a tremendous gift. And the meaning behind that is that we must all come together in co-creation. And that's why I love this term so much, co-creation, because we are all meant to have different greatnesses, if you want to call it something, or brilliances, or I know there's no plural of these words, but, to call it something. So different talents, skills, backgrounds. So no one has exactly the same background as you have, the same combination of talents, gifts, experiences, stories, and so on. So there's a good reason for that. And it's because the world needs exactly that specific combination. Mm-hmm. And we must be aware of our own brilliance in order to really be able to use it. And that's what I also work on with my clients. We dig a little deeper with their brilliance. It's not only about hard skills. It's really a lot about soft skills, about what do you bring to the table that you don't even value yourself just because it comes easy to you.
That's great. The reason I asked you to go in depth in each one of those three elements, as a transformational coach, people, my audience, just like me, we need to understand what are the actual elements that may affect that transformation that you want to have incur in that person. So that's why I wanted to hit those elements, so my audience would have an understanding of, oh, wow, so that's what has to change. That's what I need to be more aware of in order to make these positive shifts in my life. Because oftentimes it's not a change. I found that there are people who have all the elements, they just need to be adjusted. They need to be pointed in the right direction.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, a ship without a proper course just gets lost. And we have those elements of success. We just need assistance with our direction. Is that along the lines of what you do?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, because it's also so much about authenticity, right? Our distinctive uniqueness, as I call it, is a lot about authenticity, about who you truly are, bringing that out to the surface so that you can then more easily distinguish yourself and find your ideal clients if you're an entrepreneur, or your ideal job, the job you really want to work in as an employee. And this diversity has a huge role and function in this co-creation that I mentioned earlier, because we're not supposed to be perfect and have all the different skills.
Yes.
That's not how it's supposed to be. But we are supposed to surround ourselves with people who have those complementary skills. That's also really a big trait of a successful team leader or leader in general, to surround themselves with people who have those complementary skills that they do not have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So if you don't mind, we've talked with some specificity about the scenario that someone may be in who may be seeking a transformational situation. Would you give us some other examples, and then we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the process?
Yes. So I do both workshops and private coaching. So if you want to focus on that private coaching scenario, I mostly work with women, but that's just because they oftentimes have a greater need for this work, or they feel more, spoken to when I talk about this. But I've certainly also worked with some men. Oftentimes women have just a harder time finding that confidence, or that just to take that next step in their careers, right? So they know they're competent. We all know that women are competent. They hold more than 50% of the college degrees in this country. So what happens is oftentimes they measure themselves by what they have achieved, if at all, because oftentimes they don't even see their own achievements or accomplishments clearly. But if they do, they measure themselves by their accomplishments rather than by their potential, while men tend to, and then again, it's stereotyping, not everybody's the same,
right.
But men tend to measure themselves, for example, when they go into a job interview, by what they can achieve in the future, and they tend to talk about this. So oftentimes it's easier for them to get the job because of that, or to even get a higher salary because of that, because their payment is then also assessed by that potential.
Yes.
So, or determined by that potential. So this is one example. It's also about women entrepreneurs. So women entrepreneurs oftentimes have a harder time asking for the money, whether that's just asking for the sale or asking for the right rate. Both are very typical scenarios. And I think many women entrepreneurs who are listening can relate to that. But it's really also about, it all boils down in the end to having that confidence to be skilled enough, experienced enough, and all these enoughs, right? Mm-hmm. So we oftentimes think we are not this enough, not that enough. And when we look for an excuse, it's really easy to find one of those.
They're lurking out there around every corner.
Aren't they?
Exactly what you just mentioned about the interview scenario. I have 32 years of business development experience. I've led several sales teams, local sales teams, regionals, and also international sales teams. And one of the things I determined whenever I interviewed someone is their ability to communicate their success. I didn't want someone who was bashful about what they could do, what they've accomplished. And I always ended up hiring the person who told their story the best. And I find that with each position, if they mention the success they had there, and then the greater success in the next position, and the greater success, I really had a winner there, because their life had gone through various transformations, that they've had experiences that they've learned from and moved forward in. I love that. So that's an excellent piece of advice that you gave there. So once you connect with someone, how do you assess what type of transformation they may need?
Well, first of all, we have a short conversation over the phone usually, or in person, right? Mm-hmm. And I work with my clients mostly, with my private clients, I should say, mostly remotely. Mm-hmm. And what we do is we have a quick conversation. We determine whether it's a good fit, and then they get an intake sheet and they give me more details so that we can dive right in their first session. Mm-hmm. And we typically work over a period of 3 months. Some work over 6 months. I think a certain time period is required to make substantial progress. Mm-hmm. I also give my clients online access to me over email during that time period, so they can check in with me and give me their assignments, and I can look over them and so on. Mm-hmm. So that's how we typically work, but it's completely customized just because of what I said before. Every single person is different and has different needs. Mm. There are also different depths that people are willing to go to. So I have to respect that. Oftentimes, what we think in the beginning might be a good way to proceed changes over just a couple of sessions because it's very dynamic and very organic. Even the assignments, they just come about organically during the session usually.
Mm-hmm. How do you determine the level of intensity of desire that someone may have to make this transformation? How do you know if there's a genuine interest to do so?
Well, first of all, people are usually excited about it when they start. Mm-hmm. I have had some really great conversations with prospects. Just one recently also where the person was in exactly the ideal situation for an ideal client for me, who I could really help very well. Mm-hmm. And she knows that she is somehow stuck in that situation. She doesn't quite know how to get out of there by her own. And she has a big desire, but maybe something in that motivation to make that step. I don't know whether it's courage or whether it's, or whether it's just something else, but mm-hmm. something is stopping her right now. So she's mm-hmm. not quite ready yet. Mm-hmm. And I really don't want to push my prospects into working with me because I want to work with people who are committed, right, and who also do their homework, their assignments in between our meetings. They are not hugely time intensive, but they do require a little bit of time, and who are just also open to acknowledging their own progress with this work.
I see.
It doesn't really help anybody if there's all this resistance at the beginning. If they're open to me helping them through that resistance, I can certainly do that, but they have to have that openness.
Okay. So we've discussed the process to a degree. Is there anything else you'd like to add that might be a source of additional encouragement to those who are seeking transformations?
Well, one thing is for certain, we are all speakers in business. Mm-hmm. And as I told you earlier, I had a very sobering experience a few years ago, which actually left me pretty much without confidence at the time. Mm-hmm. And I had to rebuild this confidence because I moved to New York. I didn't know anybody here, at least not anybody who would be related to what I do now. I was building a new business. I was starting from scratch. In a different environment. I was also coming back into an English-speaking environment from a Spanish and Portuguese-speaking environments where I spent a lot of time before. So I had to figure out how to rebuild that confidence and how to speak in a compelling, confident way about a business that I was even still building.
Super.
And later on, I decided I also had to go out and speak about it actually in front of an audience, right? So what I did is I came up with some tools that helped me short-term to trick my subconscious, to say it in a way, into that more powerful situation. And there are many ways of doing that. Of course, over time, everything has changed, but I'm still using many of these tools, but at the time I really needed them badly. Mm-hmm. And some of them are to prepare mentally, some others are to prepare physically, and some others are to prepare energetically for mm-hmm. these speaking and other challenging situations in business. And I pulled them all together in a book, and it's on Amazon. It's called Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. Speak powerfully in any situation.
Okay.
And for those who are not necessarily quite ready for a coaching program, it's a great start to look into some ways to get over some hurdles when it comes to speaking up in meetings or in front of audiences.
That's outstanding. We really appreciate you sharing that with us. Before we wrap up here, I'd like you to share with our audience that may be interested in connecting with you how they can do so through your various mediums, website, Facebook presence. You can even offer a telephone if you want to.
Yes, sure. So, as I said earlier, I offer private coaching. It's explained on my website, transformyourperformance.com. Mm-hmm. I also offer group workshops for corporations or other organizations. Mm-hmm. And I offer speaking. There's also a speaking page on my website. And I have a LinkedIn profile. That's where I have also published a series of articles. And I do have a Facebook page. It's also called facebook.com Transform Your Performance. And I'm on Twitter as Transform Dance.
Transform Dance.
Yes. So I mostly interact on LinkedIn, Twitter, by email, of course. My email is regina@transformyourperformance.com, or you could also just go on my website and drop me a note.
Okay.
And my phone is 347-821-8050. Mm-hmm. Again, it's all on my contact page.
Okay, great. Well, I have to tell you, this has been a very interesting, enlightening, and encouraging broadcast. I like the nuts and bolts. And when I find out how people are successful and they share their systems, I love that. And I also find it attracts an even greater audience for them. So I wanted to say, Regina, thank you for being with us today. And hopefully we'll be reconnecting in the future also.
Well, thank you so much, Ed, for having me. It's been a huge pleasure, honor to also inspire your audience. And yes, I certainly look forward to speaking more.
Okay, great. We have been speaking today with transformational coach Regina Huber. And this is Ed Bracey on behalf of Making Moves in the Marketplace, saying make it a great day.
Thanks for joining us today for Making Moves in the Marketplace. Making Moves in the Marketplace is a production of Synergy of Empowered Women, an organization that provides a platform for donors, volunteers, and advocates committed to helping women achieve their greatest potential. We look forward to our next informative broadcast where we interview social entrepreneurs making moves in the marketplace.